Hey everybody, welcome back to the Donna Drones podcast. I'm Dawn Zoldi, your host and the CEO of 3P3 Tech Consulting. Can't even say my company right, it's early. We are in July Innovation Month, and we kicked it off huge last week with our sponsor of the month, Jason Christ from Class G. If you missed that one or any of our back episodes, absolutely go back and check them out on demand on Drone Life TV. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do that. That way you'll get the notifications for our upcoming episodes. But Jason's company, Class G, creates a really interesting air toll road tolling system for the sky. And I know that's controversial. So again, check it out if you haven't heard about what he's doing. It's really interesting. But this week we have another incredible company. And I have to say, proudly, from my home state, Colorado, we've got Accucode and CEO Kevin Price. So Kevin, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.
Yeah, absolutely. So Accucode is doing a ton of stuff that's innovative, relevant to the drone company, and really well beyond. This company started over 20 years ago. And we're going to walk through that journey with Kevin and talk about all the different things they have going on. So I'm really looking forward to this, Kevin. And let's actually start there. Let's start with a little bit of background about yourself, because you created this company 20 plus years ago.
Yeah.
But what kind of brought you to that point?
I bought a Commodore 64 when I was 9 years old, growing up in Oklahoma, and taught myself BASIC. And I've been studying engineering, physics, and electrical engineering, and the like since I was a little kid, and solving problems through the application of technology has just kind of always been in my blood.
Wow. So, so you were working for or in the barcode industry when you kind of
Yes.
had this epiphany and walked away and started Accucode. So that I'm very aware of barcodes, but I didn't, I guess, fully appreciate it was like an entire industry. Can you give us a little bit of background of kind
Sure.
of like how you got into that industry, what you were doing there, and why you did walk away?
So I was 26, and I had been in the industry just a couple of years at that point, and it was still very early. Barcode scanners cost, a couple $1,000s a piece, and ruggedized mobile devices didn't really exist yet, and Wi-Fi was still years away. And I was working as a salesperson in the industry, trying to sell barcode printers and scanners back in the very early days. And the companies that I was working for were not very good. They didn't really understand the technology. They weren't really, they didn't have a plan for how they were going to help the customers apply them or use them. And so I quit on Friday and started this on Monday, and had no idea how unqualified I was to do what I was setting out to do. But that's how these things get started.
Yeah, I love that. First of all, I love the gumption you had just to, hey, I'm quitting Friday. I'm just going to start my own company on Monday. And we've been talking about these kind of leadership journeys in the Full Tilt podcast, everybody. So by the way, check that out on fullcrew.io. All those videos are up there. But Kevin, so you just mentioned these barcode people. You were very frustrated with them because they had a solution, but they really didn't appreciate fully the problem that they were trying to solve with it. When you created Accucode, what problem did you see out there, that you were trying to solve by creating that company?
Well, it wasn't enough just to sell a barcode label printer or to sell the customer a scanner. You had to help the customer understand how to apply it in a way that was actually going to deliver business value. The whole barcode scanning industry, today it's called automated identification, and it's AIDC sector. It's a big industry. The largest player is a company called Zebra Technologies. They're public, and their stock has done pretty fantastically well the last decade. Um, they they've really rolled up and consolidated most of the market. Them and Honeywell are the two big competitors in that space today. The customers need somebody to help them go create real visibility, though, and that's what automated data collection is really about. Whether it's IoT sensors or barcode scanners or RFID antennas, it's all about creating accurate real-time visibility of all your people, your processes, and your assets.
And so when you created Accucode, that's what you set out to do. Can you tell us, like in the beginning, the origins of the company? What products or services did you start focusing on right from the beginning?
Well, as is usually the case, there was a lot of luck involved. Very early on, I landed a deal with the post office.
Wow.
They were using a technology called optical character recognition, and a company that doesn't exist anymore called Care Corporation was the big manufacturer in that sector. And I landed a deal for $30,000 worth of OCR cables to sell to the post office, and that 30 grand was the start of my cash flow, and really the first big opportunity. And then there was Jerry Baby Products. Remember Jerry?
I do.
They made high chairs and car seats.
Yes, we're both dating ourselves here, Kevin.
Yeah. They ended up getting bought by Spalding Sporting Goods, and who quickly put them out of business. They were one of my early customers. Back then they were shipping 40. They were buying 40,000 4x6 shipping labels a week, shipping car seats and high chairs to Walmart and Kmart and Target and those kind of vendors. And that's how I paid my house payment that first year, was labels going on car seats and high chairs. And which was ironic because I took my daughter to my first sales call there at Jerry, because I didn't have daycare, and she was not even 6 months old. And of course now I've got grandkids from her, so
Well, I'm sure that actually helped make the sale maybe a little bit when you
It didn't
show
hurt.
the baby to the baby,
Yeah, it didn't hurt. It didn't
Yeah,
hurt for
that's
sure.
awesome. Well, your company, so you started out small, like you said, kind of well, actually 27 years ago, like a $30,000 gig with the post office isn't
Right.
really, relatively speaking, that small. But you've really evolved over time. Can you kind of walk us through that evolution? We're going to get to kind of how
Yeah.
you plug now into the drone industry, but like just a little bit of kind of that path that leads you to where you are today.
There was one really big break in 1999. I landed a deal to build the home grocery delivery pilot platform for King Soopers,
Oh, wow.
which is a division of Kroger. And it was supposed to be a 5-store pilot. It was going to run for 6 months. We started the project in late 1999, and it went live in February 2002. We were on, I think it was Channel 4 News. We were up in Boulder and did our first home delivery at a house in Golden, that was the start of it. That system that was supposed to run for 6 months ended up running from 2002 until 2018. It handled over 3 million e-commerce orders. And we actually ended up building 3 different systems. One was to sell local inventory to customers over the internet for delivery and pickup. And the next was to drive the picking process in the stores, where we built a custom picking cart with a point of sale terminal and barcode scanning. And we were, every bag had its own unique identity, and we tracked them all to the customer's door. We had to go build a whole GIS-based routing system from scratch, because this was before Google Maps and MapQuest and all of that. So we had to go build that all from scratch. And we were, the driver had a mobile computer where he was getting turn-by-turn directions and had maps and line item details on all his order. And he was scanning every container of groceries as it came off the truck and validating its delivery to the customer. And that we did all of that way earlier than anybody else, in the market. When I won that deal, I was horribly unqualified to deliver it. I had to go hire the whole team. to do the software development. I was actually running the functional requirements gathering process myself for the first 2 weeks of the project before I
Wow.
got some qualified engineers in. Um, I understand software architectures, but I haven't been a coder since I was a kid, so I'm not really that guy these days. But I got super lucky. Uh, Wyatt Love, who's the lead architect that helped me deliver that project, he brought a couple of friends with him that he'd worked with for years. Wyatt still works here today, and his younger brother is actually my COO. He's
Wow.
been here for over 15 years too.
That well, and Kevin, what you're talking about here, I mean, just to kind of foot stomp it to everybody out there, we just really take for granted today. I feel like the system that you put in place, like well ahead of its time, 2002, this e-commerce, it wasn't really a thing then, and you were like on the cutting edge of creating it, and so it's just to kind of again for everybody out there to put some context on this. I mean, here's a guy who created a company in the basement of his house in Castle Rock, Colorado, which is about, 30 some minutes up the road from me in Colorado Springs. And, in 1995. And now here we are in 2022, and you are $100 million plus a year business with 150 full-time employees. So, that Kroger break was obviously significant, and you've done so many things along the way. I mean, we could probably spend this whole podcast. I know
Yeah.
people are probably very eager for us to get to the drone, so let's do that because you've been on the cutting edge of a lot of different industries, working with all different kinds of market sectors. And I imagine, Kevin, you looked around and saw the nascent drone industry and thought, I'm
Absolutely.
already doing like delivery stuff. I'm
I
already,
Yep.
yeah,
I refer to it as distributed device populations, and it really always boils down to, as new technologies like drones or robotics of any kind come to market, the manufacturers, as I say, it's really cute that you can do that once. If I need 100,000 of them and I'm going to run them all day, every day, what's that going to cost? And how long
yeah,
is it going to take for you to deliver it? And,
right,
the answer almost always is, I have no idea, because they've never done that before.
right,
And
right.
so part of our core business became being those thoughtful organizers that have a plan for how you're going to go acquire tens of thousands of things and go deploy them to hundreds or thousands of sites and keep them working every day and integrate them into your business and your processes and make them tolerable so that the human beings actually want to use them. Because if
Yeah.
the technology is terrible, then they will sabotage it quickly.
So it sounds like a portion of your business model is, let's just call it almost like strategic consulting, where, a business might have an idea and you'll put your 150 plus employees, brain power, and all these engineers against that issue to say, all
Yes.
right, here's what we're thinking. And I imagine, Kevin, in today's world with the supply chain issues that there are, that kind of advice and knowing, kind of where to get things. And oh, by the way, we're getting to this, everybody, in a second. Not only does he know where to get things, they're creating a lot of their own things that can be incorporated into these larger plans and models. I imagine that's pretty helpful information right now, especially in the current environment, the supply chain issues.
Yeah, it really is. It starts with understanding the business objective, and if the customer will help us understand what they're trying to accomplish, I've made the same guarantee to every customer. If you'll trust me and let me do it the way I know it ought to be done, I'll guarantee the outcome, the budget, and the schedule. And if I miss my mark, it's on me.
Wow.
Kroger, that one project with Kroger, that was a $5 million project. We delivered it in about 18 months. And to this day, Kroger is still our largest customer. Every year, I think we can't possibly do more business with them, and every year we do.
Wow.
We became their go-to partner for new technologies and for innovation, and as I call it, the weird things. Um, Drones, we jumped into I saw drones coming as a data collection platform several years ago. We got into reselling drones, and have resold several different platforms over the last 7 years. But we really never got any much commercial traction in that space. We've done some one-off projects where we helped build custom configurations where, for instance, we took a DJI drone and turned it into a GPS-deprived indoor inventory counting platform, where the drone was flying basically a pattern in a warehouse, and it flew 10 feet off the ground in between two 30-foot high racks in a warehouse, and it could read all of the tags on both sides of the aisle with 90+% accuracy in a single pass.
Wow.
We helped design the phased array 900 megahertz RFID antenna that was mounted on the drone, because the drone had its own navigation and controls to contend with. So we had to put another computing platform on the drone to handle all the RFID data, because we were using RFID data to navigate, because we didn't have GPS as well. So the tags, we had specific tags that were basically waypoints that we were using as the location identification, so that the drone knew where it was in the warehouse.
Wow. Well, that's an incredible example. And now everybody out there knows exactly why Kevin's on this podcast during Innovation Month. So let's just talk more, just kind of take it up a notch and talk more generically about maybe the three major ways, right? Three kind of major lines of effort where Accucode can absolutely plug into the drone industry.
So when I first got into the drone sector, my first target was fleet management, because that's a huge part of what we do for our customers today, is effectively fleet management for their networks, for their ruggedized mobile computers, for their barcode technology, for their RFID technology, for kiosk and that kind of stuff. So, once this kind of technology becomes a line of business tool, it's a bad day when it breaks and I don't, and it's not there to do its job.
Yeah.
So having a plan for making sure it keeps working every day, whether that's software updates, whether that's, break fix, warranty administration, all that kind of stuff, that was where we started. The product today that we've got that really, I think has got the most value in the sector is one of our software applications called For Work. That's a cloud-based multi-tenant software as a service offering, where we built it originally to help us, and it runs all of our own field services and depot operations, and all of our customer service and project management is all wrapped up inside of that. It does all of our internal cost accounting. I can tell Kroger down to the penny what it costs to do that serial number, not just what it costs to do one of these.
Right.
Because I have all the data to explain why, and I have pictures of all of it. This solution is ideal for manufacturers of technology like drones. They can use it to coordinate their own supply chains, to manage the manufacturing and assembly process, and the product can then be bundled with the drone so that it travels with the drone as part of the product, to educate the customer on how to use it, and to use the same software to go create data collection and workflow automation applications that include the drone. So the same tool that the drone manufacturer is using to manufacture, deploy, and support becomes an operational training and application tool to enable the drone in the field and auto-produce reports from the data that's collected.
Kevin, as you're talking, it reminds me of a conversation that Mike Peel, our producer and my co-host for the Full Crew podcast, which we also have on Twitter, we had Major General retired James Poss on our Full Crew Twitter Spaces the other day, and he was talking about this idea that, it's not necessarily the drone industry that are coming up with the really good ideas on how to use drones. It's these other industries. And it seems to me, because you're working with grocery store and you have been working with companies like Kroger for years, I think that gives you in a way a leg up when somebody says, hey, we want to now start doing drone deliveries at Kroger. You already know their business model. Your technology is already programmed in there. You know how their workflow goes, to then work with an OEM or just say a service company that has the drones, or knows how
Right.
to do the delivery service. Marrying up with a company like that for some of these clients that you have, to me, would make an abundant amount of sense. And it just, as we were talking, that what General Poss said, I
You're
think is
absolutely
so
right.
true.
Well,
Yeah,
it's not a, the data collection technology really isn't of much value unless I'm applying it to a really specific business problem.
yeah,
And if you don't have enough depth domain knowledge around that problem set, you don't know where to start.
yeah,
And it's, you know, customers are only interested in things that solve their problems right now. And it has to be the ones they're interested in solving right now.
right.
Right now, everybody's got labor management, labor problems, and using robotics to supplement the labor that I've got is going to be a huge part of how we address that.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm sorry. I'm like smiling again because, I mean, it's crazy how things just, they all come together. Like for our all of our episodes almost in June for Full Crew, we talked about this idea of robots, whether it was robotic baristas, right? Mary McNabb from Drone Life, who hosts this, presents Dawn of Drones, talked about what they're doing in Singapore there, and then we had, who else was we were just been talking about this idea of robots and kind of that human interface and how all this is going to work, and you're already doing it. But Kevin, you also have a huge engineering bench, and you bring
yeah.
to bear not just, for example, for work, which we can dive into a little more deeply if we have the time, but the different engineering disciplines that you bring to bear to help
Right.
solve problems. If Could you like talk
So
a little bit about that?
we've got mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers. With the 3D printing store, we've got the ability to manufacture metal, fiber reinforced plastics, all kinds of different polymers. And I've got a couple $1 million invested into 3D printing technology of various kinds, both here and in Dallas. And really, any hard part we can replicate, modify, manufacture, and we can do it very quickly compared to injection molding and those kind of things. We can do things that you can't do with traditional manufacturing. Our artificial intelligence and electrical engineering team, we've like when we built the RFID drone for Sprint, um, that that project combined sensors, it combined cameras, it combined onboard computing, and we were analyzing the RFID data, all the different timing of the radio signals as it's coming in through the antenna, so that we could triangulate based on the differences in fractions of seconds, because we're receiving each one of those signals multiple times. And doing that kind of hard science engineering and applying it to meaningful ways, where you're taking effectively a transportation platform, loading it with a set of specific data collection technology, and then applying it to a specific work environment, so that now, instead of 3 guys spending 3 hours a day going around counting stuff in the warehouse, I have perpetual visibility of where everything is, because this drone's flying a sortie every 2 hours.
Yeah.
And and that's the kind of stuff that we see as possible in this space. We've designed a compact computing platform specifically for doing these kind of edge data analysis applications, so that we can collect terabytes of data on the fly and analyze it right there on the spot and make operational decisions on it based on that.
Yeah, well, look, we know it's always about the data, but I want to talk about this 3D printing for a second, because
Yeah.
so we had talked about the For Work software, and obviously you have other software that you've designed as well. But this
Mm-hmm.
kind of, let's call it your second tranche of capabilities that you bring to bear, the 3D printing in particular.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to gloss over that, because frankly, for everybody out there, I met Kevin through Deborah Wilcox. She is up in Denver, and the 3D printing store is the one she runs and owns and works with Kevin.
She's the founder of that. She came from the aerospace sector and got enamored with 3D space and got the entrepreneurial bug and jumped in.
Yeah, and so Deborah, we ran into each other at the Energy Drone Robotics Coalition Summit, and you live in Colorado, and you see your colleagues in Houston,
Right.
and she introduced me to Kevin, and by the way, all the other fun fact, Deborah is a licensed attorney like me, and in her case turned entrepreneur, and just doing this 3D printing and amazing things. So tell me if you could give us maybe an example or two of maybe some cool 3D printed parts that you've incorporated into drones, or for the drone industry, just to give people an idea of, the kind of what you bring to bear in that regard.
We've done custom frames, airframes for drones. We've done custom propeller designs, um, propeller guards, the shields that go around. Done
Oh
lots of
yeah.
those. Custom, packages for carrying equipment. So specific, cargo carrying, add-ons and things like that. The antenna array that we did for Sprint. Part of that idea was that they were going to use that in the field as well as in the warehouse to go interrogate the equipment on the cell towers without having to go up the tower,
Oh
because
wow.
they could
Yeah.
they could send the drone up, and the idea was they were going to put the RFID tags directly onto the motherboard of the network equipment so that it was basically transmitting all the time so that you could identify firmware versions and software versions and things like that without having to send a guy up the tower. And in other words, I may have to go up there to update the equipment, but let's make sure I've got the right stuff before I climb. And
Yeah.
that
Very
was the
cool.
idea behind that application. We have all kinds of sensors that we can help package and apply to this. Literally 600 different off-the-shelf types of sensors that it's just a matter of you telling me what kind of data you want to collect. But barometric pressure, shock, light, humidity, all kinds of things. Accelerometers, high resolution GPS, all kinds of things that we can put into a custom package depending on what your application is.
So, would you say sensors is kind of this third tranche of
Yes.
kind of capabilities?
Putting, really attaching more data collection to the drone, customizing the drone for specific environments, physical environments, and data collection applications. Whether it's specialized cameras like infrared or other packages, we've got experience in doing that.
So, are you at liberty to tell us about maybe a really cool, maybe market use case that has incorporated some of this 3D printed or sensor technology that we're talking about here?
Oh, actually, our own projects that we've done, we've developed some products here in-house that are really the most comprehensive use of our capabilities. Everybody else just kind of picks and chooses this as one thing. They come to us with a specific problem, and that's usually the area that they end up focusing on with us from an engagement standpoint. But occasionally, I decide to go build my own projects. During COVID, we took and completely designed and manufactured in-house a kiosk that had visual cognition capabilities and natural language chatbot capabilities, along with a pulse oximeter and an infrared camera. So we could take your temperature, we could tell if you were wearing a mask, we could do facial recognition, we could ask you a whole series of health screening questions, and we could control the door and clock you in for your work shift and all of that kind of stuff, all with a kiosk that was 10 inches by 15 inches and cost $1,000. And the first we've done 3 different generations of that product now, and it only cost me a few $1,000s per unit to custom manufacture those. That's like Zebra Technologies used to spend $1.5 million to get the first prototype of a new handheld out the door, and
Yeah.
now, because of additive manufacturing and new technology, new ways of making things, we can design the circuit board, have the boards populated and soldered, and go, 3D print all the housing and all of the accessories that go with it. And within a matter of weeks, we've custom manufactured a device that, is at a scale that used to would have cost a lot of money and taken, 18 months to pull that off. And now we can do that in a matter of weeks.
Well, when we're talking about supply chains, and especially in the drone industry, you've got this concern definitely in the federal government, right? The fiscal year 20 National Defense Authorization Act, Section 848, which forbade, right, the Department of Defense for, procuring, operating Chinese drones,
Right.
or drones with Chinese components. And then a number of federal agencies adopted that as a matter of policy. And then, of course, what we've seen really in the last few months is a handful of states popping up similar requirements. And, Kevin, rumor has it that in the critical infrastructure, which, fun fact, is about, depending on what statistics you're looking at, between 80 and 90% owned by the private sector, that there may be some movement on that side to kind of go that same direction. We'll call it blue.
Well,
Blue
we're trying to,
UAS, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
we're trying to push out Huawei from our telecom infrastructure, and we're trying to push out DJI from the whole drone industry, which, they're it. There's nobody else that has any meaningful scale yet. The U.S. manufacturers that are here are trying to catch up. There's several, what I'll call vertical application platforms like DroneUp that's focused just on delivery, like retail to consumer delivery, and they're starting to get some traction. But if you're a aspiring drone entrepreneur, we can take you from concept to prototype to do all the design work, help you build the command and controls and all of it, and we could do it all here.
Wow. And DroneUp, I was just with Mike actually in Austin with the Drone Code Foundation at the PX4 Developer Summit, and Mike Blades from DroneUp gave a talk. Their origin story really, and it's a let's just call it a vertical that they still have ongoing. Really started as almost like a drone service provider network. Where they have the website and people can sign up for jobs. So that's still ongoing. This drone delivery thing is, as you say, Kevin, it's big, it's newer, it's probably over time, may very well become their sole focus. Yeah. They're definitely ahead of a lot of other folks there. But the fact that you can work with an aspiring company or even an established company to kind of do soup to nuts, from designing, well, first of all, strategically planning with them and consulting through the design of almost all the components, including artificial intelligence, sensors, the hardware with your 3D printing, and then the deployment model. I think that's really unique, honestly. We always talk about in this industry how collaboration is key, and it still is, and it always will be. But what's really, I think, interesting about Accucode is the fact that you have the collaborators all under your one roof, in essence, and that you have partnerships with some heavy hitters, that people that may want to incorporate a drone as a service or drone whatever model into one of those. You've kind of got that going on already. I think that's really cool.
We're actually doing a lot of work right now with Nokia and Cisco networks. Nokia for private LTE and Cisco for Wi-Fi. But we're seeing a lot of activity around new networks being deployed specifically for automation applications that involve robotics and drones. Because I need that network connectivity if I'm going to start collecting petabits of video using drones and robots. Well, I'm going to have a really good network to back all of that, and that's part of what we do as well, and always has been. So it's we strive to be a one-stop shop, and even if we don't have experience doing it, we'll go find a partner who does and take responsibility for delivering the whole scope. And that's always been part of what we do.
Well, and you mentioned earlier this, whether we're talking about drone barista or robot baristas, at the end of the day, it's not only about human machine teaming. Eventually it's going to be just machine to machine to machine networking. Whether, I think a port, as I think about, right, like today, as we sit here with the regulations where they are, I think those kind of ship to shore port operations are probably one of the best examples of how you can have robots and drones network to be doing incredible things that are value add, for a particular, especially for the energy sector,
Right.
as one example. So
We're doing a lot of
what,
3D printing for that sector too.
oh yeah, like what, for what?
Halliburton is we're printing parts for Halliburton, and we're selling them printers so that they can print them themselves. We've got materials like Peak and Ultim that are super high temperature plastics, and they're actually using them for fittings and couplings and that kind of stuff for the oil rigs,
Yeah, it's
because they
things.
can 3D print it so much faster and cheaper than it takes to machine it or to wait for a mold.
Well, no wonder then Deborah was running around the expo hall floor, given that it makes, now it's making even more sense. I know, when she and I talked, we talked quite a bit, about that sensor, portion of your model, because, all the different sensors that are needed in the energy sector, including methane sensors,
Right.
which is huge, for compliance purposes, environmental compliance.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so let's talk about maybe, what's kind of on the horizon. I mean, you've come so far, you're doing so much. What do you see, kind of happening maybe over the next year, for Accucode, especially vis-a-vis the drone sector? Like, what's your vision?
We're really looking for partnerships in the drone sector, drone manufacturers and fleet operators that are facing challenges in scale, that may not have an ideal package for their data collection aspects of it. And, we want to help, whether it's on the fleet management side or whether it's helping build a better data collection platform. That's really for us in the drone space. That's where we're going to be focused for the next couple of years. Um, 3D printing and helping the drone manufacturers, iterate faster, customize faster, build packages for specific projects more cost effectively. That's going to be part of our proposition. Really, for work, I'm spending most of my time these days uh, staffing and planning a new business unit around that piece of software. We've got our first others commercial subscribers on it, but it's right now there's no full-time employees associated to it besides our development team. And so I'm working building a business around that. That's going to be a big part of our push in the drone space and in the 3D sector. We have basically the same message for 3D printer manufacturers as the drone manufacturers. We have a piece of software to help you go coordinate your supply chain, your labor, your deployment, run all your service and support, do all of the asset management and entitlement tracking necessary for the device, and give your customers a tool for training and using the technology as well.
And
And you get
Kevin, when you say for work, it's the number four, right? So
the
for
number four
work.
in work. Yep.
Okay.
And then we have another application that goes with that, that's called Order for Work, that is a B2B mobile commerce marketplace, similar to like an Amazon-like marketplace. And the idea is that someone like a drone manufacturer can take that application and go create their own mobile commerce ecosystem where they're connecting, they're selling their parts, they're selling their drones, they're, engaging with service providers, they're engaging with environmental, engineers and people that need to do studies, and using it to go create their own B2B marketplace. I think of these tools as digital conversion tools. One of my catchphrases these days is, if you don't have a button in their pocket every time they want you to do it again, pretty soon they're going to be pushing somebody else's button, and you won't be their vendor anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, we make buttons, and that's part of my vision is helping new technology manufacturers and sectors as they're coming to market have a plan for how you're going to go scale that, the go-to-market aspects and the operational execution.
Yeah, and part of this is you guys just moved into a 50,000 square
Yeah.
foot headquarters here in Centennial. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we literally back up to the runway at Centennial Airport. It's at the back of the property line, so we get to watch the flight line all day. Just moved into it. We've just added 30 to 40 new people here at this location. We have more services work to do right now than we've ever had before. A lot of businesses are, because of the labor issues and other supply chain issues, technology is the tool that they're looking to recover from that and to remediate it. And so we're very busy.
Yeah, so that's a good problem to have. So you have the Centennial headquarters you had kind of alluded to, and so the 3D printing store. There's two locations, one in
Yes,
Denver and one in Dallas, Texas, I think you said.
correct.
And
It's interesting. Dallas is such a manufacturing hub. It's Texas is a pretty unique market in the United States. There's more manufacturing in the state of Texas than the whole rest of the whole rest of the country combined.
wow,
Basically, California and Texas are pretty much it for any significant manufacturing scale in the United States. And there's a rule in Texas that if you're not in Texas, if you're not from around here, well, then I guess we're not going to be doing much business. So you have to be present in that market. And so I recognized that several years ago. Even before I bought the 3D printing store, Accucode's 3D business unit was headquartered out of Dallas. And when we acquired the 3D printing store, we merged those operations. And Dallas is the market where we're engaged with the energy sector out of, for instance. And
yeah.
we have different printing capabilities there. Like we have the ability to print metal parts there, 3D printing. Here in Denver, we've got some UV light resin that does some very cool materials and can print very quickly and cost effectively. So we've got a range of different materials in each location, and we've got engineers that support all of that in both. Um,
Now, you
really,
besides these U.S. Kind of physical presences, you also kind of have global collaborators and are creating a global
yes.
ecosystem. Can you tell us a little bit about that and where all that is
Well, the
taking
big the
place?
big thing for the 3D printing store that we have a big initiative we're getting ready to kick off called the Digital Manufacturing Network. And the idea is that we want to create a partner ecosystem where we're using order for work and for work to connect machine shops, additive manufacturing service bureaus, design engineers, IP attorneys, and customers so that the customer can come in with a concept or a part and really engage everybody they need in order to go from concept to design to prototype to scaled production, where you can, because you're plugged into a global network of additive manufacturing partners and they're all collaborating together on your project and your manufacturing processes, they look much more like an integrated entity, and you have the ability to go digitally manufacture in a way that you haven't before. And part of my vision for this 3D sector has always been that the day will come when mass producing things and inventorying them and shipping them all over the world won't be cost effective, because the cost of transportation and mass production and all of that stuff will no longer be valid. And when all of a sudden I can digitally manufacture, where I don't have to carry the inventory, I send a file to a partner in the right region of the world who makes that part for me, and in a couple of days it's delivered to the point of use. And I didn't have any inventory, I didn't have any warehouse, I just sent a file and manufacture my part. I skipped the duties, the tariffs, the taxes, the import, all of the costs that went into that old way of doing things. The part can actually cost, multiples of what it used to cost at a unit
Right.
level, and it'll still be more cost effective because I got rid of all of that infrastructure and overhead that came from the old way of doing it. And
Wow.
in order to recognize that vision, you have to really go create a global network of those resources. And it's not just the additive manufacturing people. You got to connect the subtractive people too, like the machine shops, because there's still a lot of parts that I can't make the new way yet. But we want to all collaborate on that kind of digital manufacturing. The machine shop's gone digital too, but it's a subtractive approach instead of additive. And so part of our vision is to create that network and create a collaborative environment where these kind of resources can really be used on a global basis.
That's amazing. As I'm listening to you, and we are at the end of our time, I don't even know how that happened. I'm listening to you, and it sounds very much almost like the drone codes, like open source concept, but like,
yes,
you're gonna have to, Kevin, go back to your team and make up a name for this, because this is I feel like a very unique model, and you can coin your own term for it. But before you do that, let's give you the last 30 seconds here to kind of wrap this up. Like, where can people find you? Are you all going to be at any upcoming events? How can they connect with Accucode and you, Kevin?
Accucode.com, 3dprintingstore.com, and reach out to me on LinkedIn. As far as shows go, I know we've got some 3D and some drone shows that we're coming up on. I unfortunately don't have that schedule. I'm blissfully ignorant of those kind of details.
We'll get it out to people, and of course,
that's
people,
okay.
Yeah, make sure that's on your website.
do come check out our website. We are setting up a landing page just for this topic, so that we'll have a very specific set of content for you when you land, and targeting, talking about what we can do for partners in the drone space.
Oh, that's brilliant. All right. This was so cool. Thank you so much, Kevin, and everybody out there. Thanks for being with us again today. Tomorrow on Drone Law Connections, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're going to have Brent McLaughlin of Asalon Robotics with Karen DeMeo of Aero DeMeo. So that's going to be a great conversation. Kevin, when you think about networked robots and a company is doing really cool stuff, particularly for security and defense, that would be Asalon. So maybe you can check that out
Very
as
cool.
well. So
I will go check them out. Thank you.
Yep. And from Philly. So that's where I'm from. All right, everybody. We are out here. Thank you so much, Kevin.